Hi folks, I wanted to do this recording outside, but it's too windy, and I don't want to have to face the reality of recording this video and then having to hear that it's too noisy with the wind. So I don't want to take the chance. So this, the word God, it's a word. We know it's so heavily loaded, but we don't appreciate how heavily loaded, words are in general, and that's the feeling of this talk for myself, is how I know I've been given an impression, an idea of God. And I know it's in my subconscious, and I can feel it when I'm in my meditations, in trying to connect with Source, or the infinite love that there is. I feel that there's a resistance. I feel that sometimes the head and the heart aren't really matching. I feel, because I'm also starting to do this heartfulness meditation, which is great. I'll get more into it in further videos. I'm still very new to it, but the idea is basically that you concentrate, or you focus on the presence of the light in your heart, which is basically Source, God, if you want to call it. Okay, again, the words are troublesome. So for myself, I realize that there's this resistance, that the head and the heart aren't meeting up, and there's a conflict almost going on. And then I think, and I go into that conflict, and I see that the idea or impression that I have of God from the mind state is completely inaccurate, or completely inappropriate, completely limited, completely superficial. Alright? And I'm aware of that, and I'm working on that. And so obviously I trace that back to, where did I get this impression of what God could mean? Alright? And what Source could mean, the infinite, the beloved, what could it mean? When you use the word beloved, I know Indians use the word beloved when they're referring to God. And some of them, other cultures will also use the feminine, the goddess. Right? A Western world that I grew up in is God, basically. It's a male figure. It's got a male energy, only male energy. And when you hear the word God, it's very, very loaded. And it's a word that most people aren't very comfortable with. In fact, we're more comfortable with the word devil, which is strange but true. There's more people looking up the word devil on YouTube than there are the word God. Okay? So there's something to that, and there's a lot to what I'm saying. But that word God is very loaded. So even if you change the word to the beloved, your brain, your mind starts remapping itself over days, months, years, let's say, just by the word beloved, or the infinite, or the Most High. Okay, and your relationship, also from a mind, okay, is for me at least. I use the word God, but I haven't outgrown the impression, psychological impression, that the word, also physiological sometimes as well, what the word God means. I say, like how it's identified, how it's been ingrained in me. And so I don't want to use the word God, but I want to be above words. Okay, I don't want, if I use the word beloved sometimes, if I use the Most High, consciousness, if you want, the Source, the universe, etc. I want to maybe be doing it in means of explaining what I'm talking about, using words, but not having to be defined by the definition of what generally, because words are limiting, obviously, and our concepts are limiting. Okay? And the thing is that I find that part of awakening or enlightenment is a relationship with Source, right? With the mystery, if you even want to call it. But the mystery also sounds a bit like Harry Potter for me. It sounds a bit like, one of these movies of gargoyles and, alchemists, which, not so much alchemists, but dragons and folklore or something like that, that kind of mystery, right? And so mystery, maybe it's not the most appealing word for me sometimes. There is a mystery. Again, anyway, that's something else. A lot to be said here, folks. And I'm sure there'll be further videos on this topic as well. So enlightenment, for myself, I don't think one ever reaches a full stage of enlightenment. I think there's different levels of awareness and consciousness and connectedness. That's what enlightenment, I think, is in a way. It's connectedness, right? Because you're feeling enlightenment is beyond the boundless. Well, it's boundless. It's timeless. Okay, and it's bigger than. All right. It's bigger than you can ever imagine, and it's always bigger than you can ever suppose and expect, and what you experience. It's the experience is just always growing higher and deeper and more expansive. Let's say one's experience of God. I think it's an unfolding relationship of direct experience, and there's so much more to what I'm saying, obviously, but so that's certain points that I wanted to mention. I watched a movie a long time ago called The Sunset Limited, and I've been wanting to do a video on it, but I don't know if I'll get around to doing it. It's basically Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones, and Samuel L. Jackson's character is named Black, and Tommy Lee Jones' character is named White. Okay, and now Black, Samuel L. Jackson, I think he's a janitor somewhere or something like that. It doesn't really matter. And Tommy Lee Jones is a professor at some university. And Black sees White one day trying to take his own life by jumping in front of a train. Black is just sitting there on the runway, on the bench or whatever, waiting for and he sees White wanting to jump in front of it, and he saves White. He pulls White away. And then, he takes White back to his apartment where they can speak, and they get into a very deep spiritual philosophical talk. It's very heavy, because basically Black only sees black, and he says there is no God, and he says the world is darkness, and he puts forward a brilliant case. So I wanted to get more into that because it's very important conversation, but I'm going to ruin the movie for you. Eventually, yeah. Let's just see how much I've been going on here for. So the idea is that White is trying to convince Black not to take his own life and not to leave the apartment and go and kill himself again. But White is telling him there's no reason to live, and you're just frustrating me, And White is a Christian man, and he believes that, and he reads the Bible and whatever it is, and so he's trying to convince Black, which is almost impossible, that God loves you, that there is a God, let's just say, and that it's not all meaningless and purposeless. So there's something to it. It's not just suffering and darkness. And he argues back and forth, then whatever it is, it's a brilliant conversation, very heavy, very deep. And Black crushes White with, because he's got the words to. He's got the logic to sometimes. And White doesn't stand a chance. Anyway, Black leaves, and he says, look, I'm going to do what I need to do and leave me alone, and just stay out of my business. And White tries his hardest, but Black eventually leaves. And White breaks down. Samuel L. Jackson breaks down. Like, he just starts shouting at God, or, whatever. And he says, why didn't you give me the words? Why did you give him the words? If you want me to do your work, why did you not inspire me? Why did you not something or other? why? And he says, like, and he really feels sorry for himself, and he sits, and he falls to his knees almost, or just on the floor, and he and he basically still says that he looks at the camera. I think it's called seeing behind the curtain. It's a phrase in cinema that when you break character, it's not breaking character. It's something when you look at the camera directly as an actor, you acknowledge the camera. Certain movies do it from time to time. I think it's called breaking the curtain or something. And he looks at the camera and it's almost like he's speaking directly to God, and he says, I can't remember exactly. I should have the quote in front of me, but he says that even if he never hears from God again, it will still be okay. And as he's sitting there, the music starts to play. I'll try and play a little bit of the scene, but I might, it's copyright issues. And the music starts to play, and all of a sudden behind Samuel Jackson, the sun starts to rise and starts peering in through his apartment. And that for me was, for me personally, how I understood that was God acknowledging him in a very non-subtle but subtle way. The sun rising at that very specific time, as he sits down, as he stares at the camera, as he sort of just breaks, and he still says, fine, you didn't give me the words, I couldn't convince Black, he won, it's fine, I felt ignored, but I'll still be here for you, God. And obviously, so there's no, and then the sun rises, and it's beautiful, and that's how it ends. And I went to the comment section, an explanation on the movie, a comment section of that video on YouTube, and many other videos as well of it. And nobody caught on the fact in the comment section, or even explanations in the movie, that God was the sun peering through his apartment at that given time. Like I thought maybe I'm imagining this, but for me, look, I never did a lot of homework on it to find out what the screenwriters was intention, or the author of, because I think it was originally a play. So I'm not sure, but from the viewer's point of view, I think most viewers missed the message that God was peering as the sun through his window, and bringing the warmth and the light into his life from the dark night into the beautiful day. And my point being there, and I'll do more talks on this as well, is how we are so immersed in God's world, in the divine's world. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. But yet the mind is blocking us from, not just the mind, I'm using that term loosely, the mind is hindering us like in such massive ways that we don't even appreciate, which is absolutely frightening to appreciate or to try and fully acknowledge. How much the mind is, in my moments, now when I'm doing these meditations, this heartfulness meditation, it brings me into that space. And I can feel the difference after the meditation, no question about it. But without the meditation, very often I'm running around and feeling removed from this, let's call it a space. This heartfulness, right? This heartfulness space. And what I'm saying, which we'll get more into, is how the mind and the personality and the ego, it's amazing how it's literally shut us off from the divineness in our lives. And how far removed we are generally. Even the more sensitive, even the more conscious, even the more spiritual. We are so far removed generally during the day than we can ever really appreciate. In other words, when we're busy in our affairs and the mind and the stress and everything else, which is all fine, it's all okay. We don't even realize that such a space exists, right? It doesn't exist. It's only thought, let's say, that exists. Alright? It's only conditioning that exists. There is no higher power, there is no supreme, there is no beloved. There is, not just as an abstract or as a figure, but as a space, as a sense of presence. It's the emotions are raging or up and down, and this is all fine, but we have no idea a lot of the time that we are bathed in it, immersed in it, right? Saturated by it. And it's huge. It's huge. Anyway, so I want to get this is an introduction talk into this, because I wanted to do more on this as well, and how really one's practice of awakening, enlightenment, self-actualization cannot be done without the space or the ultimate experience of the heart. Let's just say for now, the heart. It can't be done. I really feel you reach a limit that you can't go any further unless you have something higher and above to continually growing towards, expanding towards, unfolding towards. So this has got nothing to do with going to church on a Sunday, which it can be, or something of that nature. But we're talking about going beyond so much of more of the superficial, going on beyond the mind, we'll get more into this, folks. But that's what I'm saying, is that we can't leave out this, not just a crucial aspect, but it's like, it's not having an engine in your car in a way. I feel it's like I'm sitting in my car now, so like that's how limited you're going to. You're going to have a car, and it can maybe give you shelter, and can give you somewhere to sleep at night. Maybe the aircon works, gives you a bit of warmth and coolness, right, to a certain degree. But it's not going anywhere. So what we need is this relationship with, again, the words with, I don't know what, I don't want to use words. Let it just be. Let it just be for now. What it may be. Because I think all of you have an idea of what I'm talking about, even if I don't have to use the word. Alright, folks, we'll get more into this most certainly. Take care. Be well.